Hi, this is Micornus Phokane, the leader and the founder of Church Governance Solutions. Today, I want to deal with a very important topic, particularly this season, which I call conference season. This is the time when, even after COVID, we have seen conferences coming up and we've seen many churches running conferences. But that's the reason why I want to speak a little bit about this topic, because it's a very, very important topic, particularly on how to handle guest speakers. I want to speak about how to handle guest speakers in when you invite them to your program or when you invite them to your conferences as well. Now, this is very important because guest speakers are actually people that you invite to come and speak in your conference. So therefore, there is a certain etiquette that we need to speak about on how to handle them. And from the beginning to the end, it becomes very important to do so. Now, I want to speak about this, and the first thing that I want to bring about now is when you are inviting a guest speaker for your conference, I want to urge you to make sure that you do what we call early invitation. Early invitation would be really to a month or more in advance. So you can't invite somebody within a week and expect them to be available. But also, I want to emphasize as well that it is very important that you tell people way in advance. And some of them even 3 months in advance, some of them even 6 months in advance. And the reason is because there are those people that are very tight scheduled in invitations, where they may not be able to actually prioritize you or your conference if you don't tell them well in advance. There are those that are tight scheduled in regards, and they are booked even a year in advance. Otherwise, you will never have a space of inviting this particular man or woman of God because they're just so busy. And I want to emphasize that because it's very key that you get organized yourself. And I believe that each one of you, as visionaries or church leaders, you are aware of what we call a church calendar. You're aware of programs that you set up in the beginning of the year. And I always say, if it is okay with you or okay with you, make sure that when you do your church program or your calendar in the beginning of the year, you already have a knowledge of when your conference will be. And if you are aware of when the conference will be, generally it is better that your guest speakers you notify them and or put what we call a placeholder for them so that they can be able to know that they'll be ministering in your conference even when it is still way off. So they already blocked the dates. They already know that in this particular week I'll be ministering in such a conference. Very, very important that you do so, because early invitation helps you to secure this particular speaker, as I've said earlier. And also, it actually helps you to be organized so that you know exactly who are the speakers who are coming to your conference, and that will make the job easier for you. Secondly, clarify the theme to all speakers, because it's very important that a conference, of course, has got a theme. Now, as much as it's got a theme, themes need to be simplified. And I must emphasize this. I don't know how to emphasize this, but difficult themes are becoming very complicated because they will not be easy for any speaker to articulate that. And as a result, when somebody finds your theme to be difficult, they're not going to be able to deliver to that to which you purposed to do, unless if you're running a conference for the sake of running a conference. But I believe that every visionary and every minister of the gospel, when you are running a conference, is because there's a reason behind that. There's a rationale that you want to address issues with your own members. There's a theme for that sake, so that you will actually deal with your own members in a certain way. And that's the reason why conferences are ran, by the way. Otherwise, a conference that's done for the sake of doing conference, of course, it's a waste of money. Of course, it's a waste of time for people as well, because conferences should be well in advance, in the sense that known for a particular rationale or objective that you want to achieve. And if you've got an objective that you want to achieve, so therefore you will align your speakers earlier and make sure that you invite them. They are aware that they will be ministering in a conference, not in the last minute, of course, unless if one of the ministers all of a sudden cannot make it, and you know someone who can actually step in, that's okay. But in the beginning, the plan should be that you got all your speakers lined up. Very important. I want to also emphasize the fact that you need to keep constant communication with your speakers. You need to make them aware, because if you've told a speaker in January, for instance, that they'll be ministering in September, for instance, or in October, as we are in October, it is very important that you keep constant communication with them, even when the conference now is getting organized. So don't take it for granted that you've told this man or woman of God in the beginning of the year. Don't be comfortable with the fact that you've spoken to them in January and take it for granted, but they know. And that's the reason why I'm not going to communicate. That is out of order. But the right order is, please communicate with them. Make them aware that you still need them. Make them aware that they're still part of your conference. And that is very key. And that communication needs to be constant, because there are some other things that may come along the way. And also, simply, the speaker may think that you don't need them anymore, and they may actually move on to actually get other invitations and block that date. So it is very important, and that we emphasize that keep constant communication with them. Receive the guest speaker on arrival. So in other words, if a guest speaker, therefore, will actually come that particular day, make sure that when they are arriving on the day, you receive them. And you make sure that you welcome them, make sure that you are actually orientating them upon your place and show them around. And if they are to sit first before starting with the service, please get them to sit where they're supposed to sit. But welcome them. Don't be away because you are going to welcome your guest speakers. So be there for them. So this is very important. And I've seen in many places that the visionary is not there during his own conference or her own conference. And therefore, you come there as a speaker, the guest or the visionary is not there, or the host is not there. And when the host is not there, then it becomes actually something that becomes disorderly for the speaker, because you are invited by this man or woman of God, and she's the one or he is the one that you know. And therefore now you are arriving, that individual that invited you is not there, and that becomes disorder. I want to emphasize that, so please let's correct that as an error. It is therefore very important also that we also don't keep the speaker away from the service too long, because I've seen many churches that would actually welcome a speaker, put you somewhere in a corner or in a room. The service is continuing, and you are sitting there alone, twitching your fingers and not sure when they're going to call you into the service. Remember that the guest speaker is a born-again Christian of God, or a child of God himself, who needs to become a Christian first before becoming a minister. So therefore, he needs or she needs to fellowship as well. Not only that, but we speak about praising, to be part of the praise, to be part of the worship, because this particular individual is a child of God who needs to be worshiping his God as well. Very important. And I've seen these protocols that are done, and a minister has been put somewhere aside and only to walk only when they're going to step onto the pulpit, and that is very disorderly. And I must emphasize that the Church Governance Solutions, we encourage you to actually involve your guest speakers into the service, so that they can be able actually to see the flow and to actually experience the flow of where God is. And while he is or she is in the service, God is speaking, God is communicating. And as God is communicating for the sake of the people, so that minister is there to hear what God is saying as well, as they're worshiping, as they're praising. Very, very important. And I want to emphasize that don't intentionally put the guest speaker away from the service, because they are children of God that need to be worshiping as well. Very, very important. Clarify the protocols before entering the service, because there are those churches that are very, very strict in protocols. Where to go, where to sit, and which is very important. So please clarify that. When to come onto the stage, clarify that if there's a different way of doing it. And if there's a different way of ushering the guest speaker to the front, to the pulpit. So please clarify that in the beginning, because let it not be a surprise that will come only when one is in the service. And I must emphasize that protocols become detrimental when they're not clarified, because they will actually put off somebody who has actually been charged by the Spirit of God, ready to minister, but protocols come in there and step in and disturb actually the sensitivity of the Spirit of God, in the sense of hearing and understanding what to be done. Because some of the protocols are very destructive. And of course, some of you would actually agree with what we are saying, because we have witnessed this in different ministries, and hence we're saying let the protocols not be destructive to the flow or what is happening in the service. Very, very important. Clarify those protocols. Let the guest speaker know the protocols in advance, so that they can actually cooperate with those protocols without overstepping. This is very important, and I must emphasize that. Allow enough time for the word as well, because sometimes we go on with other stuff, we go on with other programs or things happening, and only to find that when the guest speaker comes, we say, Minister, you're having only 15 minutes. And you find that this particular speaker has prepared, say, for about 30 minutes, you say to them, only 10 minutes. They've organized, maybe they've prepared for 45 minutes, you say to them only 10 minutes. And that is disorder, because that must have been discussed earlier. And make sure that the minister knows the time earlier, even when they prepare, because when they prepare, they should actually align themselves with your times. That's very important. If your sermons are actually supposed to be ministered only for 15 minutes, say it well in advance, so that the preparation become in line. Not only when the minister has arrived and you tell them about only 10 minutes given to them while they're prepared for 45 minutes. That becomes disorderly and disturbing as well, because some of the ministers may not even know where to cut and chop and change some of the presentations that they're presenting. So very important that you give enough time. And I must emphasize as well that enough time will be dependent mainly on how you're running your services and how long your services are running. But the minister or the guest speaker must know in advance the times that you expect them to be ministering or preaching on the pulpit. Very, very important. And we emphasize that please let it be enough time. Escort the speaker after ministering, and make sure that you walk them out and you give them a courtesy of organizing somebody who would walk them out if you are not available to do so. Very, very important, because they can't just be lost in the crowd at the end of the day. So very, very important, and they don't know also where to go to after the service. Lead them where you want them to be, and that's very important. And as I said, if you are not able as the host to lead them through, get somebody reputable, somebody who's able to take them to where they're supposed to be. Very, very important that we emphasize that as well. And I'm sure that will help as we do so. Lastly, ensure honorarium ready on the day. And if it's not ready on the day, it must have been something that's organized, where there is a transaction that will be done electronically. That's okay. There's nothing wrong about that. But let it not be something that will take months after the conference. We have seen that happening, and we have seen people that are invited, but this particular church is not ready to honor them. And therefore, after ministering, months goes past, and the guest speaker doesn't know what happened, no communication at all, and nothing is coming forth. And they have actually traveled with their own petrol, they've traveled with their own resources, and they expect that to be reimbursed, and nothing is happening. And we need to speak about this and make sure that that disorder and error is being addressed. The honorarium must have been budgeted well in advance, and you cannot rely on offering to honor people, because offering may not come that particular day. It might not be enough to what you've budgeted. So very important that before you even set up a conference, budget has always been set in advance, so that it can be able to honor your people that you've invited. I want to end up here today Your host, Micornus Phokane. Thank you very much for listening to us and be part of this great topic. And I hope you've learned quite a bit out of this and you'll make use of it. So please be part of our socials. And as I've emphasized before, our YouTube channel, subscribe to it, click the notification button. You'll be able to know when we've posted these teachings. And also we have in the Church Governance Solutions page on Facebook, Church Governance Solution page on Facebook. So please subscribe to that and like that page. And as we post these teachings, may the good Lord bless you as you learn out of it. Allow us right now to say cheers for now.